Hey, what's up you guys? We're back in the studio. Today we're going to do the D70 challenge. I'm shooting with a Nikon D70. It is like a 15-year-old camera, 6 megapixels. Kind of show that you can shoot with almost anything you can get your hands on. Again, the camera's $40 to $50 on eBay. We're going to use the Yongnuo lens that I did a review on a few weeks ago. That lens is $72 for the Nikon, $42 for the Canon. I will link that one in the description. Again, it's not sponsored. I just really like that lens and really enjoy the work I get out of it. And I'm also going to be using a ring light for this shoot. I'm actually going to do a time lapse of me setting up the studio behind me so you get an idea. I always come in about an hour before I expect the model so I can get the studio all set up, all the lighting set up, do a couple lighting tests to make sure everything is where it needs to be. Now, I did say that Valerie would be here for this shoot today, but Valerie actually has the flu. She texted me this morning and told me that she was throwing up. So I had Ariana coming in. I've shown some of Ariana's work. I'll show a little bit more. We're going to do a couple other videos today too that we'll work on that I will release as I finish editing them, including the f-stop video. We're finally going to shoot the f-stop video. So again, today we're doing the D70 challenge. I'm really excited for this one. It's kind of pushed my skill level because the D70 I've only shot landscape with. I've never done portraiture with it. And that's actually, again, the first digital camera I ever owned. Before we get into the shoot and before I do the time-lapse setup, I'm going to kind of go over the camera with you. So the D70 was released in April of 2005, so it's about 14 years old. It is a 6 megapixel crop censored Nikon. The back viewfinder, not the viewfinder, but the LCD screen is actually really small. It doesn't allow live view like you can with a lot more modern cameras where you can see the view on the LCD before you take your photo. Everything has to be done through the rangefinder. Now what's interesting about this camera, from what I've read, and it's been a while since I've shot it, but I believe it only goes down to 200 ISO. I will correct that if I'm wrong in a little scrolly thing. So 200 ISO, it is a crop frame sensor. When it originally came out, it was almost top of the line. It's pretty antiquated and outdated at this point. This camera was actually owned by my grandfather. I purchased it from him 5 or 6 years ago, and again I used it for landscape, nightscape photography. What's really interesting about the D70 and the D70S is the sensor inside of it is actually really good for infrared photography, so you can get modified ones for about $200 on eBay to allow you to take infrared photography, which is actually really cool. I'll do a video on that in the spring again. But I do have a D70S modified for infrared photography for doing infrared landscape photos. Kind of gives it a ghostly appearance. You can make that appearance in Photoshop, but again, when I bought the camera, I was under that whole I don't need to edit phase of my photography career. Now the D70 does take the compact flash instead of a normal SD card, but it is a much cheaper camera, and I'm going to kind of show you that you can do great portraits with it still, even though it is only 6 megapixels and it is 14 years old. So the lens we're using is a 50mm f1.8 Yongnuo. We did a review on this. I've spoken extremely highly of this lens. I gave it a 7 out of 10 star review on the review video I did on it for a budget lens, and that's the great thing is this lens was $72. These cameras you can pick up for $40 to $50, and then the ring light I'm using is a Neewer. I'll have to do a review on that. I have some Neewer products that I really like using because it's budget friendly and they do a really good job for what I'm looking to do. The Neewer O-ring is about $72, and that brings this just under a $200 challenge shoot. So we're gonna get some great photos with Ariana, kind of show you the versatility of this ancient camera. So thanks again. We're going to do the time lapse now. That way you can see how I set up the studio before I actually get the shoot going. Hey, what's up you guys? We're back in my basement. I hope the echo is not too bad and the furnace shouldn't kick on. So I had a cool time lapse set up of me actually shooting with Ariana. That did not work out as planned. And the problem was the lighting with the ring light. A lot of it was dark and there was a lot of fuzzies in the background because of the noise from the ISO. So we're back in my basement. I figured instead of showing that time lapse and doing that, we're going to go over the photos themselves. So let me adjust myself so I have room for the photos in the frame. God, I love wide angle lenses. So we're gonna go through the photos one by one. They're on here. So this first photo, and like I said before, is I'm not gonna heavily edit these. All I did was adjust the white balance a little bit and tweak the contrast just a hair. But in this first one, you can really see Ariana's eyes. They're crystal clear, and they show that emotion. That's the key with shooting the eyes. That's why I always say, shoot at eye level, because the eyes hold all emotion. So this first photo of Ariana, she's actually in a red pinup dress. Her hair is down, and you can very, very clearly and sharply see her eyes. Now, if you look around the edges of her shoulders, you can see that they're a little bit soft, and the background around her, and even parts of her hair are soft or a little bit blurry. We were shooting at a relatively low ISO because we were using a ring light instead of a standard flash. So the second photo, actually, because it is a prime lens, I had to get in real close to her, like way close to her, in order to get this image, but I really wanted to bring out her eyes more, especially in this. And once you get that reflection, like right in the pupil of the eyes, like in this photo, it really makes a big difference. And we did this with a 6 megapixel camera. Like, you can get these cameras for 40, 50 bucks, and it's 6 megapixels, and that's amazing, the kind of quality you can get with such an old camera. Now this next photo, I wanted to add a little bit of emotion, a little bit of pop, a little bit of drama to the photo. So, you know, very softly I had her touch face and this, and have her engagement ring shining on her finger to kind of give it a really dramatic look compared to the other photo before, which is just a standard portrait, and that's what really makes it pop. Again, we used a 6 megapixel camera. All of these were shot on a Nikon D70. It's 14 years old on a $70 lens with a $80 ring light, as budget as you can get. That's how we shot this. So this next photo is the same pose almost, except I had to back up because again, it is a prime lens, so I backed up a little bit to get more of her body in motion. Now usually when I shoot a shot like this, I'll have her lift one of her toes like that, because it makes the upper body pop up and it's more peppy, adds more motion to the photo. And now in the studio, I have a really nice white brick wall. You probably saw in the time lapse of me setting up. And again, that adds more emotion to the photo. That adds more drama to the photo, more feelings to it. And again, I had her bring up her hands very softly against her face, and that still keeps her soft and feminine. But the photos, you know, this one came out amazing too. You can see the glint, the ring light reflecting off of her eye. We didn't use a flash, we used the ring light. It was a super, super cheap budget challenge is what this started out with, and turned into a 6 megapixel budget because 6 megapixel challenge because the amount of people I see, you know, they talk about this one has 42 megapixels, this has 30 megapixels, this has 24 megapixels, and we're shooting this at 6 megapixels. And the whole point of this was to show you that you don't have to have a bunch of money to take wonderful photos. So all you photographers out there that are just getting into this, you don't have to stress about needing the newest and best and greatest equipment. It's essentially a 15-year-old, it's almost 2 decades old camera that you can get on eBay for 50 bucks. So this one I really like. It was the same pose as the last one, except I stepped forward towards her. I wish that time-lapse video would have worked, because then you would see me making all these movements towards her and away from her and posing her and setting her up in these. But again, this one, if you can see, and this is really important and it will be in the f-stop video, if you see her hair where her ear's at, it's actually blurry, but her eyes are almost super, super crystal clear, especially that left eye, or right if you're looking at the picture, but her left eye is super, super clear. And the next one, I really wanted to bring in the heart shape with her engagement ring. It's against that white wall with the ring light. But it turned out to be such a really good emotional photo, and it was completely on accident. I just kind of shot it as she was moving from pose to pose, and it came out wonderfully. So those are the, you know, I took more than that. I think I ended up taking about 20 photos. Some of them were out of focus. The lighting wasn't right. It's hard not using a flash, and that camera is so old it only goes down to 200 ISO, so it's not really 100 ISO is about standard with most photographers. Like I discussed earlier in another video, the daylight, you know, the daylight at noon rule, but it goes down to 200 ISO, so it's not as slow, you're not able to get as slow as amount of speed, so you got to really use the camera settings more. And the older camera doesn't do as much for you inside the camera as a newer camera would. Yeah, it still has automatic mode, and it still has aperture priority mode, and it still has all those different modes that you can use, but it doesn't do quite as much. So there are hindrances to using an older camera, but I really wanted to do the 6 megapixel camera challenge. I wanted to show you that you can get a 6 megapixel camera off of eBay under $100 that'll take wonderful portraits and help you get along and started as a photographer. So thank you again so much for joining me on this journey. I'm sorry again that the time-lapse footage of the actual shoot did not work out, but it's kind of a shorter video. I kind of wanted to give a shorter video a try anyways. I was planning on doing that with my video next week, which you guys will be really excited for. I'm gonna make a lens out of a pop can. So that's exciting. So please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when I upload. It's every Saturday, but in case you forget, there's a lot of awesome YouTubers out there, so you're not always right on top of who's posting what. You guys have a wonderful evening. I will catch you next week.